If you like Star Trek and Star Wars and you like ship battles, you'll like this channel. And if you like what you see, please subscribe and make a comment. It helps. It really does. And with that being said, let's get started. Today we'll be looking at the Constellation class starship for the Federation. General information. Special role. The Star Cruiser is a long range of exploration research vessels. This vessel is equipped with 6 multi-purpose research bays that allow various experiments and sensors to be exposed to space. The Star Cruiser is capable of maintaining sustained warp speed for extended periods of time through the use of 4 warp nacelles which phase shift through alternating pairs to reduce the stress of any one engine. The additional engines and redundant equipment allow the cruiser to explore areas away from Federation space where assistance may not be immediately available. The Star Cruiser's extra thick XTPH-147-FM1 hull used elements from standard primary hull designs and is equipped with additional research systems and laboratories. Integrated into the standard deflector grid are additional electronic countermeasures to make the vessel more stealthy. The hull is equipped with the BS-11-3D-SD3 bridge, which incorporates the enhanced sensors and scientific stations. On the lower part of the primary hull is the SM54-9K main sensor array and the D6-1V navigational dome located on the port, starboard, and bow of the primary hull. Both top and bottom are 6 BP2-32C phaser banks. To the front of the primary hull, both port and starboard are 2 HP2 22-2G heavy phaser banks. Incorporated into the nacelles supports pylons are forward and rear firing PB10-50 110E photon torpedo tubes. On the lower forward section of the primary hull are 2 DN6-A9 navigational deflectors, which assist the navigational shield in deflecting oncoming debris. To the front of the primary hull is a medium hangar deck. Around the primary hull are 6 multi-purpose research bays. To the rear of the hull are 2 IRF 35E-5-TR dual impulse units, which are used for auxiliary power and subwarp propulsion. The cruiser's warp field are generated by 4 SW-52 warp nacelles attached in pairs. Each set is attached to the primary hull by a DU-40-30T support pylon. Inside the pylons is the M18-122E intermix chamber. To the rear of the hull are the AM8-58-7S matter-antimatter storage tanks, which allow the emergency ejection in the event of an emergency that the primary hull can separate from one or more of the warp nacelles and proceed on the remaining nacelle or impulse power. Some additional information is the ship has 2 dual impulse engines. The ship is capable of an optimum speed of warp 6, a maximum safe cruising speed of warp 8.1, emergency speed of warp 9, and a max speed of warp 9.25, and a destructive speed of warp 9.35. The starship has 532 members. Officers 85, crew 416, troops 31, passengers 90. Emergency conditions up to 500 passengers. The medical facilities consist of 5 doctors, 26 nurses, operating rooms 4, and 26 beds. There is an additional 23 laboratories aboard the starship.
Classification: Star Cruiser. Category: Research Vessel. Class: Constellation. Type: Class 1. Model: MK-XXV1. Number proposed: 9. Number constructed: 9. Number in service: 7. Number lost: 2.
The ship has 6 standard phasers. It also carries 2 heavy turbo phasers, as well as 2 torpedo bays. Each torpedo bay is carrying 2 Photon torpedo launchers. It has a full stock of 80 torpedoes. Built by the San Francisco Fleet Yards on Earth, the USS Stargate was designed primarily for deep space exploration and defensive patrol duties. It was in service from the early to 24th century, or the early to mid 24th century. The Stargate was slightly shorter than a Constellation-class vessel, and in appearance resembled that of the Miranda-class ship in lacking a secondary or engineering hull. Instead, its warp nacelles were attached to a spare bar at the rear of the saucer section. Unusual for Starfleet vessels, those of the Constellation class were equipped with 4 warp nacelles. 2 were mounted on a pylon above the command saucer, and 2 hung below. Alright, so my favorite part about the discussion, now we learned all this information, now we can throw all that information together and figure out what do we know about the ship. Well, the ship itself is pretty big. It's a pretty decent-sized starship. It's bigger than the Constellation, but it's smaller than the Excelsior. Now, if you right off the bat when you look at it, let's look really close at the size of the saucer section and compare it to the Constitution class. All right. So right off the bat, you can see that this ship actually has a considerable amount of room, even though it doesn't have that bottom section, which we refer to as the navigational deflector section or bottom half. It still has a huge amount of volume, because you can see that if you compare the saucer sections, it's almost 2 to 3 times larger because of the volume than the Enterprise A. You can see that it dwarfs the Miranda by quite a bit. So this ship has a decent amount of internal space. What is that internal space used for? We know it has a huge amount of sensory equipment, right? That right off the bat, and it's got a lot of shuttle pods because it's doing a lot of scientific exploration, right? There's something else about this ship that I want you guys to pay attention to. All right, so the Constellation Starship has 6 dual phasers, Type 7, output 16 shots, so 44,800 is what it's able to do in a volley, right? So Type 7 phasers are very old. They're not particularly that great, especially during the TNG era, right? But this ship was during Kirk's era. So keep that in mind. So there are 4 phaser arrays, right, for Type 7s. Each phase array has 2 phasers on it. There are 4 torpedo tubes. Now, there are 2 torpedo tube modules. Each module has 2 torpedoes, right? And it says it can fire 6 full volleys. So it has an attack of 293,600. Probably was carrying standard shields around 390,000. Its hull is 692,000. Now, we know that because it took the Enterprise 4 standard Photon torpedoes from a Galaxy-class starship to destroy it. So it gives it an overall defense of 1,082,000. Okay, so it could have type. There's discussions about having different phasers. It could have Type A phasers on it as well, which would drastically increase its offensive capabilities. But its primary goal was deep space and patrol duties. Right now, do you remember when they talked about the hull? Remember how the hull has got extra layers of protection? It's a reinforced hull. So that tells you something right off the bat. They planned for this ship to go into combat, and not any combat, heavy combat. This ship hull is twice that of a Constellation class starship. So the Enterprise A, this ship's hull is almost twice that. To give you an idea, this ship's hull strength is not that far off from an Excelsior class starship, which is more than twice the size of this vessel. Remember, an Excelsior class starship in this time period was what? It's considered a dreadnought. This ship is incredibly well armed for a ship of its time period. Now, think about the torpedoes it's using. An advanced torpedo module capable of launching 6 torpedoes. Remember, most ships are using standard one-shot torpedoes. So what does that tell you? So think about that. The Enterprise has 2 torpedoes that it can launch. This ship is launching 6. That means in a torpedo spread, in a battle situation, it's almost as if you have 3 starships with you. This ship is armed to the teeth. Alright, so let's think about some of the things that are on this ship, because we know it's got those strange looking balls that are on the lower part of the ship, right, which we see on the Stargazer. Those are special deep space, high resolution sensory systems, okay? So think about that for a second. And then it talks about how it has a specialized plating to make the ship more stealthy. Now let's think about this, folks. So what do we know about this ship? It's super well armored. It has deep space exploration abilities. It's fast, faster than anything else out there. It's more maneuverable than most things out there, and it's more well armed than most things out there. And most importantly, it has a form of stealth that other ships don't have. I'm sorry, I know they tell you guys that this ship was designed for deep space exploration and it's supposed to get to target A and B quickly. No, this ship was designed for spying. And let me give you the reason I think that. Number one, it's extremely fast and it's stealthy. It's very maneuverable. This ship could get into enemy space undetected far better than any other ships. And it has the deep space sensory equipment to spy on enemy powers, like the Romulans, for an example. Now, that ship is going to be hard to detect because of its stealth abilities. Now, it's not a cloaking, it's stealth. So it means it's hard for sensors to pick up this ship. This is similar to how technology that we see with the Galor. Now, hear me out. If this ship was designed just to, as a simple border patrol, deep space exploration, why does it have the most advanced torpedo module of its time period? Why is it armed to the teeth, just like any other cruiser, if that's its primary goal is just deep space exploration and light cruising duties, right? No. This ship is designed to spy on the enemies, and if it gets caught, it's got the firepower to wipe out that target and pretend it was never there. This thing is a deep space spy. This ship is designed for spying and assassinations. Starfleet tried to put one over you, but it didn't work. This ship is a spy ship. This ship is also used for assassinations. So take all these things in consideration. This ship has an incredibly powerful hull. This ship is incredibly fast. This ship is incredibly well armed. This ship is stealth technology used on it. Now, why does it have so many shuttle pods? Well, if you wanted to get into enemy territory and they had the ability to disrupt your transporters, what would you need to get a large amount of troops on the field? That's right. You're going to need a lot of what? Shuttlecrafts. That's right. This ship is completely built around spying, assassinations, and obviously breaking into enemy installations. So this ship, they try to portray it, and this is something that Starfleet does. I want you to think about the USS Defiant. It's classified as what? An escort ship? You're telling me you have an escort ship that has the firepower of a Galaxy-class starship behind it? No. Don't be fooled by these things. This ship is a complete and utter war machine. This is a top secret, think of it as like the stealth bomber of their time, right? This ship, there are not very many of them made, and there's good reason why not very many of these ships are made, is because they have got to be incredibly expensive. Think about the layer of hull just by itself, the hull itself being so strong. All the advanced sensory equipment and scientific stations aboard. And then think about, it's got 4 engines. 4 engines. So you can get in and out. Think about that. You want to spy on somebody, you're going to go and do it, right? You go to an enemy territory, you're spying on them, they're most likely not going to see you. If they do see you, you can outrun any other ship out there. And if you do get caught, let's say by a cloaked vessel, surprises you, you are more well armored than most ships that they will see, and they would not be expecting that if they don't know what your ship is. And you could return fire and take them out very quickly with the ability to launch 6 torpedoes. Because remember, not only can this ship launch 6 torpedoes, it can launch those 6 torpedoes behind itself as well. So there's really nowhere you're going to get with this ship where it's not going to be able to strike back. And not only can it strike back, it's going to strike back hard and fast. And then it's going to get out of there, and it's going to be really hard to track this ship. And if it isn't a spying mission and it doesn't want to get caught, it can flat out destroy you, or it can get into an enemy target, surprise it because they don't realize it's there. It can drop a bunch of shuttlecrafts outside your sensory systems or whatever, send a bunch of troops in there, get the information they need, get in, get out, and do whatever they needed. This is a covert Federation starship. I believe this is a Black Project covert Federation spy ship. But those are my thoughts. Perhaps I'm wrong. Maybe there's something I overlooked. Do you have an explanation why this ship is carrying so much firepower? Do you think it really is an exploration vessel? Or do you think I was right?